1,000 connection now live on at the moment. So let me have a very good greeting to you. My name is Tran Min from WHO country office. I'm team lead for health emergencies. So for this topic, you have heard now in the previous speakers, we talk about you need to assess the risk assessment. So what it is. So in the next some 15 minutes, I would like to have a run through with you how is principle you understand it, and what are those risk questions that you need to now to ask yourself in your respective state and unit. All right. So my running through the content of the presentation. First, I would like to go for the definition. We need to come and understand what you mean with that risk, and also why we do risk assessment, as well as I run through with you the methods, tool, and process to conduct risk assessment. What are the key components of risk assessment? I will present a risk matrix. At the end of the exercise, what are the output of the risk assessment? And then finally, the risk question for India at the moment. So let's first, because the risk may have different connotation and understanding, but I would like to, with this slide, to show you that this is not only probability, it's also the consequences, right? Because some people say what the risk is not what the percentage of probability of things happen, but it's also what if it happens, as you see in this picture. So if the person is walking on the balancing on the rope over the green grass is different if he's doing over the ponds of crocodiles. Now let's have here the decision what we do. What is a risk assessment? We say it's a systematic process for first gathering, assessing, and documenting the information to assign a level of risk. And so why do we conduct risk assessment? I think it's now throughout the day we get through that. We would like to characterize what it is. We say that whether we to travel, whether to institute some social distancing measure, airport screening, what is the risk? What are we addressing? So by conducting risk assessment, you can come up with the level of risk. That's to support the decision making and for us to implement the appropriate and timely control measures. It's very important we have said that we need to communicate the risk, but we need to assess it first, and that's how after they can communicate. And communicate not only with the professional, meaning that with other colleague sectors, but also the general public. And when we do risk assessment, we see where are gaps, and we can address the gaps by improving the preparedness. Now next, let me run through the methods, tools, and process. There are a number of methods and tools available, but it needs to be simple, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So we have now here, as you see on the screen, if you have a chemical hazard, we have a tool to do that. If we have a food safety event, emergency, we have a tool for that. We have a zoonotic events, we have a tool for that. As well as we do now with WHO, we use this rapid risk assessment for acute public health emergencies. One on the screen for you on the right side. The process, very briefly. First, the risk assessment is not one person who is doing that, but it needs to be multidisciplinary, because if I have again zoonotic event, you need to have a veterinary colleague to understand a bit of animal-human interaction. And if you have a chemical event, of course, you have a specialist on that area. So in that team, we have multidisciplinary different clinicians and epidemiologists or vets. So we have a team. The risk question is very critical. I will go in the end of the presentation on some of the questions that we can ask ourselves at the moment. When you undertake risk assessment, you assess for the hazard, the agent. You assess the exposure to that hazard and the context where it takes place. So we say about the vulnerability factors and then other social, other factors. After that, we assign the level of risk. So here's the process. Now, let's go to the component. We say that a hazard. Now with novel coronavirus, we are aware that it's of course a new virus. We are learning on that, but we have some indication, some of the epidemiological data that previous presenters already said, we know something about the virus. Of course, if we unknown, we need to prioritize which hazard we are going to assess. So exposure, what do we mean with exposure? First, now when people doing now contact tracing, so we say that those who are exposed to the case, the sick person who may transmit the disease to those who are exposed around him or her. But for the novel coronavirus, we can say that most of us, all of us, are susceptible. It's not like if you compare with other diseases like measles, you have immunization, and so all the people who are exposed, they can be affected by the new virus. The context during this outbreak, you have heard that not only social media is now beyond public health. It affects economy. It affects even politics. So this we need to understand why we do this assessment. What are the components that we need to take into account? The risk matrix, simply, as you see that now we took the table on the vertical axis. We have how likely it would happen, this event, and on the horizontal axis you say that and the consequences of that, like a beginning by definition. Now, if you try to make a relative, so say if COVID, novel coronavirus disease is somewhere that is likely happen, the consequence would be from moderate to major. It depends. It's not only the health consequences, as I say, it could be beyond. If you compare with SARS that we have experienced in 2003, it would be look like this. But if we put the common cold, which is also caused by another coronavirus, it's happen every year, but common cold with that you can live, right? So, and depending on the consequences, whether it's only health consequences, social consequences, economic consequences, this COVID-19, coronavirus, it could be like moving in this matrix. When you have now done this, what likely to happen and what the consequences, you can now assess the level of risk. We say that if it's low, moderate, high, very high, we can have many type of quantification. But at the end, because while doing so, we can now direct our action. If it's like not business as usual, but the intervention you have instituted at the moment is enough, or you need to have additional measure, you need to have additional resources to conduct the response action. As you see that on the scale, if you go high, maybe you have bypassed the local capacity to address this event. You need to have further support, whether it's national level or international level, is where this risk coming very high. All right. So we done this process of assessing the risk level. So at the end, the output of the exercise that you need to come up with a statement, meaning that 1-2 sentences, you say that, all right, the level of risk now is moderate, is high due to the fact of sustained human transition hasn't taken place yet. We have measures to institute, meaning our context, control measure, intensive contact tracings, isolation of the sick, quarantine of the people who have no symptoms, at home quarantine. So all these measures to say that, based on that, we say that the risk level at the moment for this event, either is moderate, high, or low. It's very important to acknowledge the limitation of this risk assessment. Again, briefly, you say that because data is not available, this is a new disease, we have not experienced such, and we don't know our capacity, we have not mapped our hospital preparedness, readiness. So all these come to the limitation. We don't have enough information. And then you give recommendation, but then you need to have, for decision makers to have action to be implemented. Whether we now concretely the cluster containment plan, you will hear it today. Whether we are going to do the perimeter control for that, and for how large the area is based really on your recommendation. So I said a few words about, because at the moment there's a great level of uncertainty, but nevertheless you need to come as a decision maker, as a high technical person, you need to come up with an answer, how to address, how to manage. So, but for that reason, you need to have understanding that this process is continuous. If today our knowledge is such, tomorrow it could be different. So this is a cyclical process to do risk assessment. All right, so now let's jump to some of the scenario. We said that we have the first case to be important. We have the cluster in the community, or we have a widespread community threat. So we have, WHO say that the rule to, thumb rule to remember easily is the 3C. The first C is the first case. The second C is about the cluster, C, and the third is community. Risk assessment also, you need to base on the context, the scenario where you are. So I'm putting now on the slide some of the questions you may consider at your respective, because India, in some of the states at the moment, you don't have the first novel coronavirus case yet. You have been doing screening, you have been trying to follow up the passengers in home isolation. So you can ask that what the risk of infection for Indian traveler citizen traveling to the areas with ongoing community transmission, like, let's say, give example, they are not only China, there are other countries like now Korea or Italy, for instance. Or this person coming from the country or area without that community transmission. So this will be a question. Also, what is the risk of introduction of this novel coronavirus in your state? To ask that question. What is the risk of healthcare associated transmission? Because we know that family and healthcare setting are those settings that primarily amplify or further spread the disease. You can also ask, what is the risk of cluster associated with this novel coronavirus occurring in other states? And you put a time frame, in the next 2 weeks, what will be the risk? I don't have that answer. Dignitaries on the dais may say that they have some thinking at the national level, but at the state level, at the district level, you need to have the same question for yourself and resolve it with the support at your respective duty station. So when we go to the next level, community transmission, we are not yet, I emphasize, we are not yet in that level, but you need to ask next that what are the risks associated with novel coronavirus infection for that particular state? Some of the states are now concerned. What is the risk of widespread and sustained transmission in India in coming weeks? This is a critical question. What is the risk for healthcare system to manage the number of cases in the coming weeks? And finally, what is the risk of severe impact on the Indian society as a whole? So these are the risk questions. We need to, because in 15 minutes or in even half a day, we might not be able to answer. But what I would like to convey the message that we need to constantly think of those critical questions in order to guide our action. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tran.